So when making sunflowers, some varieties of sunflowers have large centers, you know, so obviously like this is more the classic sunflower with quite a large center and fairly small petals. And in other varieties of sunflower, so you can see the sort of like the more like the Van Gogh type of coloring that I've got on this sunflower here is the one I'm using. But then other sunflower varieties like this one here, you can see this has got the smaller center, and then obviously the longer petals like this variety here. So you can sort of see that you've got this one has just been steamed, but you can see you've got a smaller center and then you have the petals. So this is also good for a smaller cake as well. So when we are making the smaller size sunflower, we're going to use only three wires, and these are 20 gauge wires, okay? And what we're going to, very much like the big one, but we're going to make this about 10 millimeters long, okay? And I'm using half width tape. Now this is also the same center I will use for the Gerbera Daisy. So if you watch the Gerbera Daisy, you will see this repeated because you know, I use this for Gerbera Daisies as well. So the only difference is the Gerbera Daisy is usually made in yellow or in a cream color or in pale green. So again, different Gerbera Daisies, but also some Gerbera Daisies have brown centers. But this will make the smaller, and you can sort of see the comparison in the size of the two sunflower or Gerbera Daisy centers, okay? So so once you get this here, we're going to then open this up. So again, you're going to open this up with your pliers here. So about a 20-degree angle. Okay, so just remember when you do that, just want to use your protractor there. So you see that's going to give you the sort of about the 20-degree angle. Okay, and then you're going to do the second and the third one. So for the small sunflower and the Gerbera Daisy, we only need 3 wires, all right? So this is going to be a bit like a propeller, same concept. Whereas if we only did 3 wires on the big sunflower, there's not enough support of that middle part. Now we're going to take a number 9 size ball of paste. Now when I usually make sunflowers, you know, if of course you're making different size sunflowers for a wedding cake, you may have some leftover 50-50 brown or cream color, but you can also make the small sunflower centers with gum paste, petal paste, flower paste as well. When I make usually the Gerbera Daisies, when I show that, I'm going to be using petal paste, gum paste, flower paste, all right, because you can work on it a little bit quicker then. And you're going to use a number 9 size piece of paste, so 1/3 below, 2/3 above. Okay, and then again a little bit of corn flour goes onto there. I'm going to bring in so this is going to be just like a mini version of this. Again, you're going to put this in, going to press this around the edge, so it wants to come to the edge level with the edge of the mold. All right, that's important. And again, just like before, this is going to look like a muffin or a cupcake. Okay. And then we'll take so I just really wanted to show you this. I thought it was very similar. It's just, of course, a little bit smaller, but also just the 3 wires and 20 gauge instead of obviously 6 18 gauge wires. So again, same concept here. I'm going to push this in to here and just going to twist the wire to embed the wire into there. And then going to just mold this around so that just secures that around. Stay within the perimeter of the mold. All right, and you're going to flex your mold here. Now, of course, the center, especially on the big sunflower, there's a lot of texture there. It will be a little bit resilient to come out, but as I said, it will come out. So this is going to give you your center. And again, we're going to take your tweezers here. Now here, because this is smaller, you're just going to use so just really, you're not really counting there. You're just going to go around and just sort of snip with your tweezers there. So just going to just pinch with your tweezers. So you see it's going to give you these little lines up on the top here. But you see how what it's going to do is going to give you these almost like little petals, okay? So you're just going to snip those around the outside. And then this would just dry for about an hour. And then just like we did on the big sunflower, you could paint this with brown and then use the pepper or the coffee ground in the center. Or if you're doing obviously the Van Gogh sort of color sunflower, you would then just use and there what I would do is just use the pointed end of the stick and then just going to make some like little hollows into there with the pointed end, because obviously the ball tool end would be too big. So if you're doing the cream variety, you just would make some little holes in there, and then that would just be dusted in a sort of miniature version of the big one. So you can see here that you've got obviously the larger sunflower and the smaller sunflower center. And these now will dry, and then we're going to move on to the petals. So once you've made your small sunflower center, and obviously in the large sunflower you can see the sort of the two color variations, but I've just painted this also in brown with chocolate brown gel, and then using the cracked pepper or the ground coffee. Or of course you could make this in a cream color and dust it like the Van Gogh sort of style sunflower as the in the large sunflower. So really it's just a miniature version of that. Now we're going to move on to the petals. Now for the large sunflower, obviously these are the 3 cavities I've used, the 3 petal cavity for the large sunflower petal. This is the one for the small sunflower. So it's a very similar concept. Now here we're going to start off with the golden yellow. So if you haven't watched the large sunflower, I would just watch that first because then you're just changing things slightly size-wise and whatever. Anyway, so we're going to start off with a number 8 size ball of paste. All right, so it's going to be a regular number 8. All right, so 1/3 below, 2/3 above. We're just going to condition that. And then we're going to roll that. This time, I'm going to roll this into a 6 centimeter sausage. So I've again just marked this onto here. So just roll this into a sausage like this. So this wants to be about 6 centimeters in length. Okay, and then once you've got this, but you could do this directly on your size guide or on a ruler. Again, we're just going to make this like a little point, like a pencil point. All right, so very similar concept. I said I just drawn that on a piece of paper. So again, we're just going to take just a little bit of vegetable, shorten in very tiny amount, just put that into the mold here. And we're just going to put this, so here we're about 3 to 4 millimeters from the end of the mold here. Again, we're now going to press this in with our, you see this is just much easier than starting off with a ball of paste. So if you've watched my peony leaf video, that's a very similar technique, you know. So, and just like we did when we did the large one, you're going to take your little, press this down here. And remember, you can use your little scraper or you can use your little like mini palette knife. This also works well for scraping off, okay? So just going to flatten this out. We're then going to take the back veiner, all right? So remember exactly the same technique here. So just going to just push this on, just press this on with your fingers here. So this is going to vein the back of your petals. Just going to remove this from the veiner here. Okay, so this is going to be your back part there. So this is going to go onto your little pad. Just exactly the same technique. We're going to just soften just very slightly on the back. Then we're going to just turn these over onto here. And then using the pointed end of my companion tool, just going to just hollow, just almost like give that slight point on the edge of your petal here. And then we're just going to take this, and this is going to go into, so obviously you'd need to measure off 6 number 8 size balls of paste, all right? So then you're just going to, again, just like on the large sunflower, I've just used a piece of fun foam, and I'm going to do these in 3. So you're going to do, obviously, as you make each one, pop it into a little zip top bag and seal that up, and then you will continue with another 3, all right? So you'll have 6 petals, 6 sets of petals made, all right? Now an alternative, so just like on the large sunflower, you can also use the blossom cutter technique. Now here, when I did the large sunflower, I used number 1 on the pasta machine. Here, this is number 2. So this is a little bit thinner because it's a smaller petal. I'm going to use the 90 millimeter, which is the medium size cutter. So just like I did the Calyx, and also how I did the calyx of the sunflower, and also how I showed the large size petals as well. So we're going to just take this, and then again just going to line this up. So it's going to line this up with the cutter, okay? So you see that the part is in the center. You see how this is going to cut out a daisy shape. You see, this is a really fun way, and if you want to just make quick, quick flowers like fantasy flowers, or as I referenced when I showed the large sunflower, the calyx, you could do succulents like this. Typically when you're making a succulent, it'd be thicker, and then you thin the edge like I did on my calla lily videos to create that like slightly rounded effect. But then you take your little, with your cutting wheel here, I'm going to cut these into 3. Now, so that means you're out of each daisy, because the daisy will have 10 petals, you will have actually 3 sets. So you just would need to cut out, if you're going to use this as an alternative method, it would be one or the other. You're just going to do this two blossom shapes, okay? And then you're going to put 2 of those into your plastic flap. And then, just like we did before, you take this, you're going to just stretch it slightly. 1, 2, 3. All right, you're going to take your, again, just a little tiny bit, but very, very small amount, okay? Now, the reason why you wouldn't be generous with that is that if not, what happens, you're going to get a lot of the vegetable fat, vegetable shortening onto the petal. And then when you come to dust it, it would smudge, okay? Because vegetable shortening doesn't really dry. And so you just have minimal amount of that. All right, so you're just going to just press this into the mold. All right, and then you just would do your, then you do your back. As I said, it's exactly the same as the large sunflower. And then you just would use your, exactly the same technique, soften the back, and then put it on the sponge and just do the point. All right, just to show you an alternative method for creating that. Now, once you've got your 6 petals built, all right, 3 and 3, you're going to take a piece of foil, all right? So we're actually going to make this, so this is going to be actually about 5 inches, about 13 centimeters square, okay? I'm just going to cut off the excess foil here. Just going to fold that edge just so that it sort of holds together. And then here I'm going to use a smaller, this is a 2.5 centimeter size ball, okay, so this is a 2.5 centimeter styrene ball. I just cut this in half, and this is what we're going to use as a former. This will also be the same when you watch my Gerbera Daisy video, the same size as I'm using for the Gerbera Daisy, okay. And so you're just going to put this in the middle here, going to form this around the ball. This is a very sort of inexpensive and easy way to make formers in different sizes, okay. And then we're going to take your, make a little hole through the middle here, okay, so that's all ready to go. Then you're going to start building your flower. Now on the, when we build the flower here, I'm going to use actually the smaller, this just has got a small hole in it. So this is done with a small hole punch, but also, as I said, you could just use like a small nail, a small like a little drill, a little small stick, just to make a hole through the middle of a piece of cardboard or a piece of foam. And so we're going to now build the petals in very much the same way as we did the sunflower. The difference is on the sunflower, we had 4 groups of 3, so we had 12 petals. Here we're actually going to be taking 3 groups. So these will actually form 1, 2, 3. So you see how these will actually go together like this to make your, you just want to have the hole in the middle, and this just makes it easier to get that into position. All right. And then what I'm going to do here is just going to put a little bit of cornstarch in the middle, and I'm just going to press that together just with my finger in the middle here. That will just help to fuse those together. Okay, so that will just sort of fuse those together like that. And then we're going to take your center. And the reason for that is these are a little bit smaller, these petals, okay? So there's a smaller center, so the petals are a little bit longer, but so you just want to fuse that together there. And then you're going to take your egg white. With your egg white, you're going to brush your egg white around the back here. And just like on the large sunflower, if one of these should come off, don't worry about it, it can just be stuck on, but it just makes it a little bit easier to get the first ones in position. And then you're going to go through the center here like that. All right, so you're just going to build that through. Now, this technique could also be used for things like Black Eyed Susan and cone flowers. It's just obviously the center of a cone flower is a little different, but this, as I said, technique-wise could be used for lots of different types of flowers, okay? And of course, you can also do other daisies as well. So you're just going to mold this around, okay? Then I'm just going to bring in my drying rack here. So I'll just have that. I'm just going to hang that onto my drying rack, okay? And that's just going to hang upside down for a second. And then what I'm going to do is going to have my next 3 petals out. So you want to have these ready to go, you see, so that you've got these ready to go. And then going to take just like I did on the, I'm going to take a little bit of egg white on that bottom part there, okay? And then these petals will go in between the first petals. See, so that's where my seam is. So that middle petal there will go basically where my finger is there, okay? So you want to take your egg white down. So you see, that will mean that they will actually go in between those petals. And then the second set. Again, just like on the sunflower, the large sunflower, don't worry if they overlap slightly, because that's actually all helps to give a more natural look to the flower. A lot of people make, you know, sunflowers, Gerbera daisies and daisies with a little like a all-in-one cutter, like a plunger type cutter. But the difficulty with that, sometimes you don't get that nice natural shape. It's obviously a quicker way to make it, but of course a lot of people make sunflowers with individual petals, so this is obviously speeding up the process quite considerably. So you just want to make sure you really mold around that back, all right? And again, you never turn this over, all right, because that would be a lot of drama and obviously petals will fall off, so just keep this upside down and you're going to thread this down through the middle here, like so. And then when you turn this over, here you see you have just like a little mini version of the big sunflower, okay? And then again, just going to bend your wire, and then you'll put this into a former like this, all right? And then you'll take, just like on the big sunflower, you're going to take your little pieces of foam. I'll just show you one of these, but I said if you watch the large sunflower, you'll see this. I'm just going to show you the basics of this. So you're then just going to use your foam pieces here and just going to sort of just prop those up. All right, so just going to prop up some of those inside petals, okay? And then what you do is just like the large sunflower, you're just going to leave this for about 2 hours, because it's obviously much smaller. So about 2 hours, and then after 2 hours, what you would do is you just would take it out of the former, all right? So this is one that's obviously had all of its petals propped up. You take it out of the former and then you just hang this upside down. You won't need to support this on a cup, but you just hang this upside down and just going to hang it on a hanging rack and then just let it dry for another 2 or 3 hours, and we'll be then ready to move on to the calyx. And I'm going to show the calyx next, because that's a little different than the calyx we did on the big sunflower, because we're going to use a combination of a cutter and also the daisy mold on the, as I said, ultimate sunflower daisy mold. So I'll be right back to show you the next step. So once your sunflower's dried, I've taken out the foam pieces here. So you can see it's just like a little mini version. And again, you know, don't worry about because this will be covered. It obviously has a smaller calyx, but still a large calyx to cover this all over. So now we're going to roll out, just like on the large sunflower, we're going to roll out the paste number 3. So this is the green paste. And what I've done here is, just like I've just shown you on the petals, but here I've used a 7 centimeter or 70 millimeter cutter. This is a small size of a set of 3. So just like we did before, you're going to cut in between your petals like that, okay? And then basically what you'll end up with is like a daisy shape. And you're going to put this onto your foam here. And then with your Dresden tool, you're just going to come down like this with the Dresden tool all the way around, about halfway down, okay? Okay, so this is going to be your main calyx. We're only going to do 2 layers of calyx here. This is going to then just go and be put into a bag. Okay, and then I'm going to have, so that's just going to be to stop it drying. And now I'm going to move on to take a number 9 small size ball of paste. Now this cavity I'm going to use here is what I'm going to show if you watch my Marguerite daisy. This is a sort of classic like white daisy, of course come in other colors as well, but this is an all-in-one daisy. So it's going to give me almost like a miniature version of this, okay? So what I'm doing here is I'm going to use a number 9 small. That's going to be a number 9 that goes through the hole. Okay, I'm going to condition this. So I'm going to just condition this a little bit. And then what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to take some vegetable shortening. Just going to put a little tiny bit of vegetable fat, white fat, onto the mold here, because this is shallow. Okay, and then I'm going to make it like a little hamburger. Okay, like a little patty. You're going to put that in the middle. I'm going to put just a little bit of cornstarch onto this. I'm going to press this in the middle till it comes to the end. Then I'm actually going to take the back veiner. This is the back veiner we're going to use. and going to just press this in to flatten it. You see, so this is an easy way, like I've shown on some of the other. So you see how this is going to give you most, it's going to get to most of the area. Then you're just going to finish this off with your cosmetic sponge, okay? And then we're going to take your little scraper here. So this is a fine scraper, all right? So you're going to use a sawing action. And with the sawing action, you're going to cut through just on the end here. Now, you don't want to go in at an angle, because if you go in at an angle like that, what will happen is you're going to sort of scrape off so you hold it fairly flat. All right, now, other things you can use are like a little mini palette knife, like this little knife here. And generally, I would put just a little bit of vegetable fat shortening onto there. And again, you can use this in a sawing action. This is just like I showed on my, but if you should pull out the paste, all right, you can just patch that. But generally, like the scraper works well, but you can also, an option is when you're using with paint, with oil painting and acrylic paint, you can buy sort of very flexible like painting for painting with paints. And those are sort of knives that have very, very thin blades, but the little scraper works really great for that. Now, when I do the daisy, when you watch the daisy, I actually will take this and actually vein this in 3 sections to put veining on the back. You don't have to worry about here, because obviously this is just a plain calyx. We're going to just flex this, take this out of the mold, so you can see it's just going to be like this. Now I'm actually just going to put this, turn this upside down, and then here again I'm just going to use my, just use the Dresden tool, just come down the depth of the calyx here. Okay. All right, and then when you build this, you're going to build this just like we did the large sunflower calyx. I'm going to turn this over, okay, because remember this is obviously coming up from your building from the outside to the inside. A little bit of egg white goes into that middle area there. And then you're going to place your daisy. So your daisy will just sit onto there like so, you see? And then we're going to just turn this over. And then we're going to use, you can use just a balling tool here. Just going to cup that. You're going to brush egg white all over this, because this is going to be a fitted calyx. Just brush a line of egg white just down the center part here and over the center. Okay, and then you're going to take your daisy and thread your daisy through the middle. I'm going to pull this up. You see, this is just going to just mold around the back of the small sunflower like this. Take your cosmetic sponge off, just press this on. As I said, you only need to do 2 layers. I mean, you could do a second daisy if you wanted to, but usually on these smaller ones, I just do the 2 layers there. And again, you can put some sponge pieces underneath here, or you can actually just use your Dresden tool, because this is much smaller. You just use your Dresden tool and you can just move those back just a little tiny bit, okay? And then you would put this to dry, so just put this to dry hanging upside down. Now, once this is dried, coloring is exactly the same, so just watch my video on the sunflower. So this is exactly the same. I've dusted this with sunflower around the edge and the sunflower stripe, and then I put some prairie green, a soft green in the center, and then I put a little bit of as I said, green, the apple green on there, and then you would just slightly steam this, all right? And so that's sort of how you would do it. So it's just like a mini version of the big sunflower. And then when you assemble this, so when we actually assemble this, I'm using here the smaller size leaves, all right? So this is actually made, watch the video, this is actually made in the mold, but I haven't filled the mold all the way to the top. And so then when you're putting these leaves in, and you can use, so this is like the extra small size leaf, and then you could, if you wanted to, also use the small size leaf. But you see, this is more in scale with this size sunflower, okay? And then of course you just would attach these with your, and of course if you wanted to, you could do a smaller version of the way I did the large sunflower with the, putting the paper towel on the stem. But generally these will be used more as a filler sunflower on a smaller cake or for a smaller project. Those of you working in craft, you know, this is a good size for a frame. You could even use this on a card. And of course, you could just bend that in whatever shape you want it to be in. So, of course, this one hasn't been colored there, but you still get the idea of how the sunflower will look. So this is your small sunflower, and the perfect to complement with your large sunflower or use on a smaller project or craft applications. So I hope you'll enjoy making both sizes of the spectacular sunflower. So sweet wishes until next time. See you soon.